You have stopped seeking validation. You understand your work creates an invisible impact. You have accepted that you do this alone, and still some part of you is waiting for the moment when someone looks at you and says, I see what you have survived, I see what it costs, I see what you have become. You check, though you do not admit it. You watch for signs that someone noticed. You measure whether your transformation registered in anyone's awareness, and you tell yourself you have let go of needing recognition. But letting go and waiting for the moment you are finally seen are not the same thing. This video names the difference, and it names what happens when you truly stop waiting. Welcome to Power and Myth. There is a pattern that many INFJs live without naming it. You have done years of solitary work. You descended into your own underworld. You integrated your shadow. You called back the fragments. You emerged different. And you understand, intellectually, that no one may ever witness what you survived. You have watched the videos. You have read the philosophy. You know that the Hermit does the work alone, that invisible impact matters even without recognition, that transformation serves the collective, whether the collective acknowledges it or not, and beneath all of that understanding you are still waiting, not overtly, not desperately, but quietly, patiently, with a hope you barely admit to yourself, the hope that one day someone will look at you and see, that the people in your life will notice you are no longer the person they thought they knew, that the tribe that had no place for you will realize what they lost, that someone somewhere will finally say, I understand now, I see what you were trying to tell us. And here is what makes this so difficult to name. The waiting is not always conscious. You are not sitting by the window like a character in a novel, hoping for recognition that will never come. You are living your life, doing your work, moving through the world as someone who has genuinely accepted their solitude. But there is a subtle orientation, a barely perceptible checking. You finish a piece of writing and wonder if this will be the one that makes people understand. You have a conversation in which you reveal something true about yourself and, just slightly, watch to see if they comprehend what you have shared. You post something, create something, say something, and some part of you is measuring whether it landed, whether anyone noticed, whether this might be the moment recognition finally arrives. This is the hermit who keeps returning to the village with the lantern. The work has been done, the medicine has been gathered, the threshold has been crossed. But the hermit walks back again and again, hoping this time the villagers will look up, hoping this time they will understand what the light means, hoping this time they will ask what was learned in the darkness. And they do not ask, they never ask. And the hermit returns to the wilderness telling themselves it does not matter, but it does matter. And the hermit knows it matters, and the waiting continues. But here is where this becomes uncomfortable. Because there are two kinds of not caring about recognition, and most INFJs mistake one for the other. The first kind is defensive, it is armor. It is the psychological protection you build when needing recognition has caused too much pain. You say you do not care because caring hurts too much. You say your work is for yourself because directing it toward others brought nothing but disappointment. You say recognition does not matter because waiting for it nearly destroyed you. This is not release, this is defense. And defense is not the same as freedom. You can hear the difference in how someone speaks about recognition. Defensive detachment has an edge, a brittleness, an insistence. When someone asks if you want acknowledgement for your work, the person who is defensively detached says, I do not need that, I do it for myself. And there is tension in the statement, a tightness, a performance of not caring that reveals the care is still there, simply buried beneath protection. Genuine release sounds different. It is softer, quieter. There is no edge because nothing is being defended. When someone asks if you want acknowledgement, the person who has genuinely released says, it would be nice, but it is not why I do this. Or they say nothing at all, because the question no longer activates anything. There is no wound being pressed, no hope being threatened. The waiting has stopped, not because you forced it to stop. but because something shifted at a level deeper than decision. And here is the part most spiritual teachings will not tell you. Getting to genuine release requires grieving, not philosophical acceptance, not intellectual understanding, grief, the kind that empties you. Because what you are releasing is not just the need for recognition. You are releasing the hope that your people will ever understand you, that your family will ever see who you became, that the culture you were born into will ever have language for your capacity, that anyone who watched you struggle will ever comprehend what it took to survive. This is not a small thing to release. This is the death of a legitimate hope. You were not wrong to want recognition. You were not weak to hope someone would see. The longing for witness is human. It is structural. We are built to be seen by our people, and you are releasing the possibility that this will happen, not because you are enlightened, because you have finally accepted that it will not happen. An acceptance of that kind is grief. It is a death, and it must be mourned. Most INFJs skip this step. They move straight from pain to defense, calling the defense freedom, but the hope is still there. The waiting is still there, just hidden beneath the armor of I do not need them to see, and the armor becomes a prison, because you cannot stop waiting for something you have not grieved. You cannot release something you have not admitted you are holding, and so the hermit keeps returning to the village, not because the hermit is weak, because the hermit has not yet grieved the village's inability to understand. The moment you grieve it, the returning stops, not as an act of will, but as a natural consequence of having let go. So what does it actually look like when an INFJ truly stops waiting? What changes? The first thing that changes is the orientation of your work. When you are still subtly waiting for recognition, your work has a hidden audience. You are creating for yourself, yes, but there is a ghost in the room, the imagined witness, the person who might one day understand, the tribe that might one day see. Your work is shaped, even slightly, by the hope that it will be the thing that finally makes them comprehend. When you stop waiting, the ghost leaves. You are alone with the work in a way you have never been before. And the work changes, it becomes stranger, more specific, less concerned with being understood, because you are no longer creating toward the hope of future recognition. You create because creating itself matters. This does not mean the work becomes self-indulgent. Often it becomes more precise, more truthful, because you are no longer softening edges to make sure the imagined witness can follow. You are simply doing what is yours to do, and trusting that if it reaches someone, it reaches them. And if it does not, the work was still worth doing. The second thing that changes is your relationship to feedback. When you are waiting for recognition, feedback activates something. Praise feels like the recognition finally arriving. Criticism feels like evidence that you are still not seen. Silence feels like confirmation that no one will ever understand. Every response, or lack of response, is interpreted through the lens of whether you have been recognized. When you stop waiting, feedback becomes information, useful or not useful, accurate or inaccurate. But it no longer determines your sense of whether the work mattered. Someone can love what you created, and you receive it as that, which is nice. Someone can misunderstand entirely, and you receive it as, they are responding to something I did not intend. The emotional charge is gone. Not because you have numbed yourself, because the outcome is no longer tied to whether you are seen. The third thing that changes is your energetic presence. This is subtle, but people feel it. When you are still waiting for recognition, there is a faint performance happening, not manipulation, not strategy, just a barely perceptible hoping. You are showing up as yourself, but with the slightest orientation toward, will they see me this time? Will this be the conversation where someone finally understands? When you stop waiting, the performance ends. You show up as you are, with no subtle hoping beneath it. And paradoxically, this is when people are most likely to see you, not because you are trying to be seen, because you are no longer trying. You have become unmistakable. An unmistakable presence does not need recognition. It simply is. The fourth thing that changes is that the grief becomes clean. When you are still waiting, the loneliness is mixed with hope. And hope, when it is attached to something that will not happen, becomes a kind of torture. Every moment of not being seen is both painful and disappointing. You are lonely, and you are also perpetually surprised that you are still lonely. When you stop waiting, the loneliness remains. But the hoping stops. And without the hoping, the loneliness is just loneliness. It is structural. It is the reality of carrying shamanic capacity in a post-shamanic world. And you carry it the way the wounded healer carries the wound. Not because it feels good, because it is part of the work. The pain is no longer wasted on hoping it will end. The pain becomes the thing that deepens you, that makes you capable of seeing others who are also unseen, that connects you to every person who has ever done transformative work without witness. The loneliness stops being a problem to solve. It becomes the condition under which the work is done. And there is a strange peace in that. And here is what no one tells you about the moment you stop waiting. It does not feel like victory. It feels like exhaustion. Like the final letting go of something you have carried so long you forgot it was heavy. You do not stop waiting because you have become enlightened. You stop because you are tired. Tired of checking, tired of hoping, tired of the gap between the work you have done and the recognition that will never come. And in that tiredness you set it down. Not dramatically, not with a declaration, you simply stop carrying it. And you discover you can walk without it. The hermit stops returning to the village. Not because the hermit has transcended the need for tribe, because the hermit has finally accepted that this particular village will never understand. And there is grief in that, deep grief. But there is also freedom. The hermit can now walk in any direction. Not toward the village, hoping they will finally look up, but toward wherever the work leads. And the lantern still burns. The medicine is still gathered. The thresholds are still crossed. But the audience is gone. The imagined witness has dissolved. And what remains is the person doing the work, because the work is real, whether anyone sees it or not. This is what we explore here at Power and Myth. Not content that tells you it's fine to want recognition, but the ancient pattern that explains what happens when you stop. The hermit who no longer returns, the seer who stops trying to warn the village, the exile who accepts that outside the village is where they live, not because they were rejected, because they have genuinely released the hope of belonging. And in that release they find something the village could never give them, not recognition, but the freedom to do the work without needing it to be seen. If you've experienced this shift, if you know the difference between defensive detachment and genuine release, let me know in the comments. Or if you are still waiting, still returning to the village with the lantern, tell me that too. There is no judgment here, only recognition. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring this territory together. You are part of something here. The Power and Myth community is not an audience. It is a gathering of those who understand that the deepest freedom comes not from being seen, but from no longer needing to be. Until next time, find your power, know your myth,